This is the August 18th, 2021 meeting of the Laconia Conservation Commission. I'm Dean Anson.
Deb Williams.
Lisa Moran.
Mike Foot.
Stacy Susie.
Tyler Daigle.
D. The other D.
Okay, so we're going to start off with a salute to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right, so we have a quorum, and I would like to start off by changing the agenda and start with old business with the gardens so that they can make their presentation, so we don't hold them up.
This is the plan, we obviously, a lot of us just reviewed. Hi everyone again, I'm Jason, TF Moran. Good to see you all. I know we just did a site walk with most of you, but for others, I'm here with Chris Danforth of our office, Dave Jennings, the landowner, and Tim Britton of council. Just to basically pick up where we left off with this gardens project and the continued review for the project in general, as well as specifically the conditional use permits for the associated with the wetland buffer areas in the vernal pool buffer areas. We toured the site. I think it was a good way of filling in a lot of the detail of that the plans don't illustrate when you're looking at a two-dimensional plan, and just seeing building masses and lines work. It does not give you the full feel and vibe for the of the land itself and the particular aspects of the land, in particular the site, with some of the disturbances that we've referred to in the documentation that have occurred in the prior development programs, which have left portions of these buffer areas as in a disturbed condition, which portions of them have grown up, developed with saplings and tree species. Other portions are still stockpiles of materials and aggregates. So really tonight we're looking for any feedback or comments, and to listen to any concerns or otherwise related to this proposal. We'd like to support the general support of this commission with regards to the conditional use permit applications, so that we can present that to the planning board in September. And so that's the purpose of the hearing. We've submitted some paperwork in terms of some of the aspects of this project, compliance with the conditions of the conditional use permit, on how we've certain various aspects of how we've designed the project to minimize and eliminate impacts to the wetlands and the wetlands areas. We're pursuing the former project approach to the I'm not going to be too long-winded. I just want to hit on some main points, and then open for you. On the preferred method of utilizing a directional buffer for this particular site, on this particular property, given the past land disturbances which encroach within the circular vernal pool buffer, such that we're proposing a larger area directional buffer corridor, which will be protected with certain conservation restrictions and other aspects to ensure it is maintained in a natural state and that any impacts from the condominium are avoided, from ancillary human behaviors. So just anecdotally, I know we were talking about the square footages of the directional buffer versus what the circular 100-foot vernal pool buffer. We'll provide the exact square footages tomorrow or this week to the city, which I have on file. I just don't have it in front of me. Generally speaking, I can say that it's, from looking at the plan, like this fist is the proximal 100-foot buffer area. The directional buffer corridor is this. It consists of this portion of the vernal pool, 100-foot extended, so it's a snake-like wooded area. It's approximately, I'm going to say approximately 400% or 4 times the square footage proposed as to what you'd have under a directional buffer, or 100-foot, as opposed to what you'd have under the 100-foot buffer condition. So 4 times the area. Like I said, we respect the conditions of the conditional use permit, and there's many criteria which we've addressed in writing with regards to the particular aspects of how that, and we can discuss those further if necessary. But really, I'd just like to conclude with, we understand that the board at least would like to have some type of, regarding how this system is managed, such that like the yard areas, some of the properties will abut this conservation directional buffer, and we understand that there should be conditions in the condominium that clearly outline how the maintenance of the lawns will be completed and how the reserve open space will be managed and delineated and maintained. And so those aspects we can, I guess, discuss further on how you'd like, if that's the choice of the commission, that we can get into that so that we can develop suitable condominium documents for the city review and processing. So like I said, I'm going to conclude with the just an overview of there was the units within the conditional use permit for some of the units disturbances to be within the 100-foot standard vernal pool buffer. We are proposing an alternative buffer to that buffer of a greater surface area and as appropriate as a useful natural corridor which provides an equivalent or greater level of protection to that resource as to what the city's requirements are. And we think that it's a good approach and a responsible approach, and will have no detrimental impact to that vernal pool resource, similar to the wetland buffer impacts for several of the units, where the units are some of the limited common areas will occupy some of the wetland buffer areas of the 50-foot setback. Those units are all at or moved back further from the wetland than what was originally planned with the larger development. Obviously that wasn't successful, but we're attempting to respect the ordinance by respecting the ordinance by pulling that back. We're respecting it by the development of the maintenance, arrangements that'll enable the vernal pool, the wetland, the conservation area in the center of the site to be maintained in a natural state, with exception to a recreational trail that we're seeking, a small natural footpath. Just to conclude with that aspect, that those are the two main wetlands criteria that we're talking about tonight. There's a steep slopes conditional use permit that we didn't get into significant detail of, although we initially did. The city initially hired a consultant, I believe it was Jerry Lang of the Belknap County Conservation District, to do a review of basically the erosion controls for construction to ensure that we're minimizing through the construction methods. We're minimizing the amount of cut and fills, and that they're being stabilized as soon as practicable, and that they're also going to be monitored during construction. They'll be monitored by an environmental monitor, so to speak, whereas they'll have which will be recorded in a booklet. It's called the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, that the contractor will have to manage and follow through with weekly and after a rainstorm event, checking of the silt fence, checking of areas that they've loamed and seeded, and to make sure there's no washing, digging out silt fence if there's erosion accumulations of the silt fence areas, a general just review of the perimeter controls to ensure that there's no discharges to the neighbors for sedimentation. So that and other features that we've documented in our CUP will ensure that that we are working appropriately within the steep slopes district, which is basically any area of, I think there's a minimum criteria of 100 feet maybe, that's over 25% slope, which is really a 4-to-1 slope, which is fairly common slope in New Hampshire. But there's this basically the back corner of the hillside, which we're required to construct for fire protection purposes.
Yep.
There's a little steep slope with some ledge, some rock, so that this area, to make minimization of cuts and fills, you want to follow the natural topo as much as possible to obviously minimize cuts and fills. So we're doing the road at 8% there, and maximum side slopes to minimize the amount of cut and fill volume. But it's isolated to this corner, which is required for the fire protection. So that's the other CUP. Otherwise, I'll just leave it at that for open discussion. This is an 87-unit cluster condominium subdivision, which will be basically the association will control the road maintenance and the landscaping, mowing. So the residents will not, won't be individual residential owners. It'll be an association, so they'll have some uniform control, I think, which will make it easier for maintenance and enforcement through the condominium.
So you're just keep flipping, yeah.
And that's the overview, and just I'm happy to handle any questions or concerns, comments.
Will this project be built in phases?
Yes, it's 3-phase proposed. The initial phase is basically from this south to Endicott Street.
Yep.
east.
Yep.
Approximately, it's in the range of, someone asked a question earlier tonight, but it's approximately 32 units, approximately 32 units. We have a phasing plan, which I didn't bring with, but it's been submitted to the city.
Okay.
Second phase.
Just in general, yeah.
Yeah, so there'll be a second phase, central portion of the dwelling units, and then the third phase will be the completion of the back loop, and then Chickadee circle with these end units. And the two primary access points will be constructed in the initial phase.
Right.
The eastern drive, which is called Wren Lane, these are all named after birds. So
Okay.
that's gated, fire access only.
I think this question was asked before at another meeting, and I apologize. So when you build the back half, you plan to access it through the residential front portion, right? You don't have an access road anywhere else?
We don't have
There's no port,
frontage
yeah,
on either of those properties.
okay.
We're not planning on having construction traffic utilize Wren Lane, so the construction traffic will end up flowing through, basically utilizing this main street.
Thanks. I'm so just curious, thank you.
Sure.
I'm a bit confused here. Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Well, I'm looking at Oriole Circle here, and there's 2 pages here. One of them shows lot 59, 60, 61, and 62. And I'm wondering what the difference is between that, because I can't find anything that goes up into the 80s on that picture. But when I go down below, I can see that those same ones are 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80. What am I not seeing there, or how would, between those 2 drawings?
Some of at the end of the approval process, we swapped a couple of units around, so they're not, so units 86 is actually here, next to unit 40, top of Mockingbird, which is by the drop pod.
All right.
And unit 87 is right here, it's attached to unit 85 in the corner. So we're gonna correct that, so there's a sequential unit system, but due to
And I was just,
so we lost the sequential numbering at one point late in the permitting process. Due to basically we moved a couple of duplex units and we swapped them with single families, and so then it became disorganized like that. Does that make sense? So all the 80 series is up around Oriole, you have 75, 6, 7, 8, 9, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84 here, 85, and 87.
so this one that's 77 is now on this other one, it's 60, and is that still within the buffer system here, all at unit 77?
Yes. Unit 77 is entirely within the 50-foot buffer. And that was currently, that has been unchanged since the original project as well. And that is there because we had a bunch of several multiplex buildings on this road.
Right?
And so we were operating within we're holding or improving the locations of those multiplex buildings. We were basically reestablishing and moving back away from the wetlands. That set the conditions for the request for Unit 77 to be constructed within the 50-foot setback for that building. So there could be restrictions if desired, that were put on that lot in terms of the lawn area, not allowing any additional accessory or any type of structure that would, increase the density of that particular site.
So Jason, the site is going to be built in 3 phases. Is there a condition or conditions under which you would not do all 3 phases? Like you would do phase 1 but not do 2 and 3, or you might do 1 and 2 but not 3?
No, not that we're currently considering.
Right, I mean, you're assuming that you're gonna build all the units, sell all the units, but in the event that, I mean, who knows, we've had all kinds of economic situations that
Sure.
So you're gonna build phase one. How long is phase one gonna last?
I think 2 years was what we outlined, 2 to 3 years to build that out.
Okay. And then, as soon as you complete that, you'll start phase two?
Yes. And at that point, we're required to, very soon after that point, or right at that point, we'll be required to build the highway improvements at that, basically right around the commencement of phase two.
Okay.
And very shortly thereafter, we could only sell a few units in phase two before we're required to have the highway units completed, highway improvements completed. So I think it's right now 3 units. We would have to, by the issuance of the 3rd to the 35th CO, the highway has to be improved and it has to be suitable. The DOT has to sign off, that it's been as-builted properly. It's built per plan. And then
Okay.
you come into the 3rd phase, which we need. And at that point, meet the threshold for the fire because of the dead-end road conditions that triggers the loop road to be constructed. You cannot have a dead-end road just off in the no hinterlands. So the loop road would then be, the back end of the loop around the detention pond needs to be built. And that 3rd phase. And the overall phasing timeline, I think it was 2 to 3 years per phase. We had specified on the plan set, there's a phasing plan which specifies the duration and the unit completions, the units that will be constructed in each phase, as well as the infrastructure. Because there's some things in the infrastructure that need to be done in phase one that are within the phase, like the pump station is down here. So phase one, the units are constructed, and we build a gravel road to the pump station for maintenance purposes. So there's this miscellaneous technical things like that that come into play, and they're detailed on the phasing plans.
So your nature trail goes through the wetlands, but only towards the right side.
Yeah, we amended
Just-
that at the request of the Conservation Commission.
So it doesn't go near the vernal pool.
Well, that, but also not to cross. We had originally planned a bridge crossing.
I see that on here, yes.
Yeah, and so we amended that to remove the bridge crossing and the trails, which are shown on the open space and amenities plan. Basically, the trail starts, it goes easterly into the wetland, just a foot trail,
Mhm.
and it just terminates prior to the wetland area. Similarly, the other half, there's a trail that'll come in near the detention pond along the top of it and follow the wetlands along, not within but adjacent to the wetland.
Yeah.
It's just a footpath.
Okay,
But we're gonna remove maybe if you have a branch in the way,
Okay.
we'll cut the branch, but we're not digging up the ground,
Right.
putting in gravel.
so you don't have the bridge anymore?
No bridge.
Okay, thank you.
I think if I owned a house that was built in phase one, and I had to listen to traffic going in for construction for another 4 to 6 years, I guess I wouldn't be really happy.
It may go faster than that, but because the market's unknown, you can talk to that too, Dave, but that's a long-term limit that we feel would be potentially.
I don't expect this to go much more than 3 years through all 3 phases, assuming that the market stays similar to what it is now and it's moving right along.
Okay.
As part of phase one, when we build phase one here, we do primarily, the bulk of this construction, getting down to the pump station, I gotta bring all that sewer main up, I gotta service all of these units when I come by. I gotta bring water down to it, I've gotta bring power to it, so all of the infrastructure, more or less for phase two, is initially
Yes.
gonna be established in phase one.
Okay,
So it's gonna reduce the construction
Hmm.
work
Duration.
being done here through, when you build these units, it's gonna be
Okay.
more of an individual unit.
Good
And then
point.
when you get into phase three, there's a lot less units, it's just the backside of Chickadee, and it's the top side up here. So it's not gonna be heavy construction, and the road work here will be built probably by the time, you start into phase two, that road will probably be in, and, the road work itself will be done, and the utilities will be in, it'll just be the units that are being constructed.
okay,
So it won't be heavy traffic, but my intent is to build this whole thing out in 3 years.
okay, so it would be guys with pickup trucks that were framers and carpenters, et cetera, that were doing the work, building the other units in phases 2 and 3.
Yes, but we'll have, some of the infrastructure's gonna be done in phase one for almost all of phase two.
Right.
Except for probably these back units, but we'll still have stuff
Like
in
the
there,
water
that'll be
main.
picked up, that'll be picked up as we go along, cause some of it just doesn't make sense to terminate when it's only a couple hundred feet to run.
Right,
Like the water main, the sewer main,
yeah.
the drainage main,
Yeah,
that all takes time, like he's saying, would be put in along this portion during the phase one, so that it'll cut that earthwork time
Oh,
of phase two down by
down to
half or
2/3,
less.
yeah.
Because that's
Okay.
your long run.
So the only thing I probably wouldn't be doing is paving this under the heavy construction, but all the infrastructure utilities would go in, and it's just after phase one, cause we've gotta start here and bring it all the way to there anyway.
right.
And we can have that language put into the phasing plan so that it's memorialized as well, if that's just, as an aside, that's,
I
Captured
think, anyway, I already said what I thought, so. So what are you gonna do with the rock pile?
Process it to make gravel.
Oh, you are,
Oh,
okay,
Yeah, everything will be used on site,
okay,
yeah, so that'll reduce our trucking in and out of there, and, yeah, so, it's in, we gotta move it and utilize it anyway, so we'll process it.
okay.
Is this all underground electrical also?
Yes.
I have a question, if it's not just particular to this site, is that appropriate, or?
Sure.
So, Mr. Trefethan, so I know that Meredith has 2 developments going on Route 3, above the town line, Laconia City line, and we have this development, I'm just wondering down the road, and maybe this is not, I'm thinking Conservation Commission minded as far as water drainage and all this other stuff, but are there meetings happening that are talking about how these successive developments are gonna impact the area overall,
Lakes Region Planning Commission
having this?
is spearheading that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Unless there's questions I don't know that I'm supposed to be asking.
Anybody have any other questions? Stacy?
Are the total impacts still 21,017 square feet?
To the wetland, the direct wetlands?
Yes.
Yes. And it's all man-made impacts, the resources are all man-made wetlands?
Right, yeah, I was looking at older plans,
But
I
the
was
square
wondering
footage-
if it stayed the same.
It did.
Perfect.
You have something to add?
I do have a question. So I'm preparing the wetlands permit application. And part of this is because we have that amount of impact, we have to do mitigation. And one of the questions I need to answer for the state is whether the town has any projects that they would like, some financial assistance with for, as part of our mitigation project. So that's one of the things we addressed. We were expecting, the last time, we were gonna do an in lieu fee payment. They gave us a break on it because we were doing the directional buffer in the easement. So I just would like to ask you if you have any projects that you have ongoing that might need some assistance with. So,
Thank you. Thank you. We do.
okay, great.
We do.
We have a couple of different options that, you know, as a commission, we really haven't talked about. One would be, we briefly talked about Irwin Marine is building over on, over by the ice company. And, you know, there's some improvements we could do there. And then there's improvements that we identified. We did a geomorphological investigation of Black Brook that flows from Lily Pond toward Laconia. But that's in Guilford also.
Okay. I think
And
actually I did a project there many years ago.
so we need to coordinate with Guilford,
Yep.
with the Guilford Conservation Commission there. But
Maybe the city
thank
too.
you, we would, what?
Maybe the city too.
You mean
Yeah.
the city might?
City might have some ideas too.
Oh, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I'm just giving off the top of my head two ideas that I have, but certainly we would prefer, I personally would prefer to keep the money in the city than put it into a pot that then goes to
Yeah,
the region.
and that's what the state's gonna wanna know, you know, if there's some specifics that you can give me that I can put into the application, saying that, you know, we'd like to put our efforts towards that.
We appreciate that, yeah. So, Dean, what would be the best way to handle that, to sit down
When
with?
do you need to know that by, Chris?
As soon as possible. I'm trying to
Yesterday.
get the application together, and it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to go in with the application. It just, we can say that we're in discussions on some options.
So like you're saying, mid-September, to sort of define anything would be
Yeah.
Mid-September?
reasonable. Yeah, mid,
We could probably figure that out in a week or so.
Yep.
My vote would be for Pickle Pond.
I was thinking that too.
That's exactly what I would have said myself. To notice that someone did put down a bit of a landing there.
Is that a
Great.
restoration project, or?
No, but it's a conservation, area. We bought some land and it's a conservation area and we're trying to develop it for public use.
Oh, okay, all right.
But we'll get back to you.
Okay. Also, I'll be submitting the application, and generally, I try to present the application to the commission before, you know, to get signature on the application and before I submit it. As
Okay.
part of the process. Since we have met twice before, I don't know if you feel comfortable if I just send it in, that it would just go through you to sign and then go to the clerk. I don't,
How do people feel?
I can always come up here and give a presentation, have you sign it at a meeting if that's what you want. I'm leaving that up to you.
Anybody want to comment on that?
Kind of hard to say without, I can defer.
I think I would prefer that you come and make a presentation,
Okay, right,
please.
okay.
And, you know, we'll be respectful of your time, so.
Appreciate it.
But thank you.
Okay.
That'll just give us an opportunity for everybody to participate. And,
We might be able to talk a little bit about the mitigation too, at that time.
Right. We'll meet with Dean and we'll figure out what the
Okay.
options are, and I guess what you need to know is about how much money we're talking about.
Well, if I just describe the project, I think the state, they're gonna set the amount for the ARM fund payment, and we can just ask that it be directed to the city of Laconia.
Okay. Do you have a feel for how much the fee is?
Well, the last time it was, I think it was 54,000, I think.
mid-50s.
Okay. Okay. All right, so what we need to do is we need to come up with options and the approximate cost so that we can,
You know, I really don't know the answer to that. I'll find out what they would want.
okay. Okay,
Now
so if
that I
you,
know that you have something
As
you
long
would
as they
like.
know we have definite projects,
Yeah.
I think it's all right, yeah.
yeah, and I've talked to Lori Summer
Yeah.
in the past and told her that we would like to do this with, and she was in favor of it.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But we didn't have any specific projects at that time, so,
Okay,
good,
very good.
great, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody have anything else? Stacy?
Just one. I keep reading 2004 for a traffic study. Is that the latest one? Or was there one done?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah, we did a study update in 17, which was approved by the DOT.
And that's when they changed it to enforce the left hand. I was
Correct,
just
yes.
wondering if it almost made more sense to stick a little sign out there saying right turn only.
Yeah, it's, now the traffic, are you saying the exiting traffic, right turn?
Yeah,
That's not, really practical because it sends extra traffic into the Weir Circle and it's not practical for the development to restrict that turning movement by just not allowing a full access drive to the property that is warranted to have one, so we,
As the two pieces above it, multi-families above or
Yeah.
to the south of that have
this'll help,
access.
the widening will help allow for, like I said, the left turn movement, into the site, turning left, and then exiting the site, turning left, was not analyzed to have a failing, like we model the, queuing of the site driveway and level of service of that, so that there's not a huge delay of our own traffic in the site. And then we had a favorable, meaning, satisfactory level of service for that left turn movement exiting the site, meaning we're not having anticipated a backup of traffic,
Gotcha, okay.
turning left. And there's also a right turn, we get a widened shoulder for right turn, so there's almost enough to make a left and a right
Okay.
there. But the study was updated in 2017. We studied the traffic volumes, we counted the traffic volumes in 2017
I think it's
and
changed.
modeled all the traffic based on the current traffic, as well as the, like, major projects that have been approved by the city.
Do you remember what month it was done in?
No, I don't. Usually I'd have to check, but, you don't recall that. I do not know. It was, I wanna say fall, but I don't have the traffic study on me. But it was scoped with the DOT in terms of, their engineers, we scoped the study and the parameters, so they, reviewed the study period, agreed that it was an appropriate month to study traffic, and that we studied the appropriate intersections in the study area of what the intersections were evaluated, and then the, other technical things like your, to grow the traffic, because we designed the traffic not just for the current year, but it's 10 years once this has been, so this has been designed for a 10-year, if opening year, full build was 2018, the traffic has been analyzed for a 2028 condition. So
Right,
the-
I saw that, yeah.
And we grow it on an annual rate, which is, I think, around 1%. So all of those technical parameters, which the DOT reviewed, and then they agreed upon, for the terms that they agreed upon our traffic generation rates, and they agreed with they set the mitigation, which is the left turn lane. That's all been thoroughly vetted and approved by the appropriate jurisdiction.
So,
Okay, thank
so
you.
what happens if, instead of this project being completed by 2028, it's completed by 2025? So now you have that additional traffic earlier in,
The traffic is pumped in on the, like, initial phase. It's all, I think we feed all the
Oh,
traffic
okay.
in.
okay,
We're building it full and designing it for a full build. So the improvements that they're required to build at the 30th unit is actually, when you hit 30 plus or minus, I don't know what the threshold is, around 30, that is where the warrant is met for the turning lane to be created. And that warrant is still valid upon the 87th unit. You're still fully within that turning movement warrant. It doesn't trigger additional warrants by the time you get to that 87th threshold. That's the full warrant for the full build. It just happens to tip, there's a scale, and it's a plot, and you fall on one side of the line. It's based on the amount of traffic flowing against the turning movement versus the amount of left-hand turns versus how much people are opposing that movement. And once that is met, you're over the line for mitigation, you fall in that line. You would really need to put into, for a signal or something, you need a huge retail development, something like a supermarket or
And since they took out the
maybe a Dunkin'
signal,
Donuts or something.
they took out the signal north of it to make it a traffic circle anyway, so I don't see them
Yeah.
getting all wound up for a traffic light there.
This is the appropriate, that would probably be discouraged because you're gonna stop traffic on a steep slope.
Yeah,
And you have winter conditions, it's just not suitable or deemed necessary for this development.
And
Or
now
they would have required it as a mitigation.
And now I remember you saying, when
They
you were at the
initially
site.
did the shoulder, it actually was what the warrant was, under the 126 unit development, which is 30% larger than this. Well, the OOs, 2000s, we were able to, the DOT deemed that just a shoulder treatment was necessary, which we still agree that just a bypass lane is adequate, that was our initial proposal. But they had, due to differences in policy now, they've forced this larger scale improvement, which will benefit the city public and traveling public as well. So we have the dedicated left turn lane now. Whereas initially, if we would have built out Shaker Heights, you would have had more traffic and actually no turning lane,
right.
just bypass shoulders.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody have anything else?
Do they still have the list of recommendations we gave them the first time?
2017. Yes, they're on an old agenda, but I can send them out tomorrow to the Conservation
Is that the
Commission.
July ones? Is it,
Yeah, I think from July
I have those
17.
on my person now. So I do have those. It was July 11th. It was like several.
Yeah, there's a couple things. I think you addressed them all in the TRC.
We agreed
but-
to all of them in essence, and I can regenerate submit to you responses.
Yeah,
A lot of it was stuff that we agreed to cover. It was like legal condominium association language inside
Rules,
of
yeah.
those documents, and then the trail was one of them.
Right.
Getting rid of the bridge, but I'll submit to you our responses to those, and I believe
Okay.
they were all favorable, is my recollection. We were in agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Good, thank
Oh.
you.
As I look at this here, is this topics for this is August 11th, 2021.
yeah, those were just some notes that I had written down from the last TRC about things you guys might want to consider asking about here, which I think we've covered pretty much
And did
all.
we speak on the erosion controls?
No,
Not yet, no.
but that's why I wondered if it was in the list we gave them last time.
Sure.
Already.
So I can just mention that,
Sure.
when I was looking at the plans, you guys have silt sock and silt fence along the southern border of the vernal pool, and then construction fence on the northern areas. I was just wanted to know, does the Conservation Commission like to see it completely surrounding? I mean, the northern side, as a lot of us saw today, is downslope from where construction's gonna, or upslope from where construction will be, so I don't think there will be many concerns about that, but I wanted you guys to just be aware of it.
I like it surrounding the whole thing.
We can put silt fence, like
Okay.
you said, it is up. So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
no sedimentation anticipated, but we don't have any problem by that additional level of protection. Or we could do, stump grindings or something like
Actually,
a silt sock.
I would recommend that because depending on the time of year, you don't wanna put a silt fence up because it's gonna
Would you
be a
rather do it
barrier.
In general, oh, sorry, Chris.
Yeah.
Instead of silt fence, in general? Go ahead, sorry.
So you would recommend using, the grindings of vegetation in lieu of
Yeah, it's
silt
like
fence?
a compost grinding, a berm, so the critters can get over it and not get tangled with it.
Are you speaking silt sock or just berming?
Yeah, a berm or grindings, it's usually, like 2 feet at the base and about a
Yep.
foot high, and it's pretty substantial. Plus, you don't really have to worry about it, you can just disperse it when you're done.
Yep.
Yeah, the silt fence tends to stay around.
Stick around, yeah.
unfortunately.
Oh, yeah.
Buried.
We don't like those very
Which we saw today, we were able to
Did you?
see some of that was there from some time ago.
And they'd still need to maintain it.
Yep.
If it got silted up,
Yep.
they have to clean it, just how they clean a silt fence, so it's not, it will be maintained as well.
So I think based on the amount of vegetation that was on the site, I think using, wood chips as an alternative to, a silt fence is, I think it'll last longer, it'll be less maintenance.
More effective.
As long as it doesn't include any invasive species.
Well, the invasive species issue is a pretty big issue in terms of, in what I saw mostly was autumn olive. Lots of autumn olive. And I don't know, Lisa, do you know, will additional autumn olive grow from wood chips?
Not, I don't really think
They're
the
chips,
chips, no,
But from the seed?
from everything you're blowing around after,
It's not wood chips, it's stump grindings, so when you pull out trees, you grind the stumps.
Okay,
You take the stump
Not-
grindings and you use
You
that.
wanna
and
grind up.
This is common practice on 95% of the sites that we do today. And the preference is because you don't have to go back and disturb it later, to take the silt fence or stock out. It's a natural material, and over time, as everything's established, it breaks down on its own, and it self-vegetates.
right. Okay.
And
What
it's
is the
not a
plan
barrier
on the
for
invasives?
wildlife,
Exactly, yeah.
they won't get tangled up in it.
So the plan with the invasives was that they would be removed and taken off-site, taken over to Hilliard Road? Is that,
Well, generally, if I could just speak to that, I've done a lot of work for DOT, I-93 project, and we used to do a lot of invasive species manuals. And autumn olive, basically the approved method was just chipping,
Yep.
and just leave it in place. Or you can, remove it, but basically you try to chip it before it goes to seed. So now it's almost too late, but, so you wanna try to do it early in the spring or, before, I think it's before July, end of July.
and what about the Japanese knotweed?
Knotweed's another story.
Is what?
That's another story. The DOT method for getting rid of that is to bury it, under at least, 3 feet of cover. Or chemical treatment.
Yeah, there was some, but there wasn't, I didn't see a lot.
There was a little bit, not a lot.
Is your bittersweet?
Hmm?
Bittersweet?
I didn't see any bittersweet. Did you see any
I
bittersweet?
didn't see it much.
It's amazing.
A lot of natural regeneration vegetation out there. Succession.
Okay, so why don't we go through these topics here? Unit number 7 is to be built entirely within the wetland buffer. Anybody want to make a comment on that? to go in.
Do you need, I talked to that earlier. Are
Yep.
you looking
Yeah.
for us to comment, or are you just,
Okay,
or were you just eliciting commission comments?
yeah, does anybody have a, I mean, did Jason address it?
I don't really have a problem with it. I mean, based on this,
Okay.
the kind of wetland it is and what's happening, I don't really have a problem with that.
Okay, so anybody, Mike, do you have a problem with what
If
Jason was?
everybody is all good with it, I'm fine with it. I've mentioned it a number of times, but if this is what we're up to, and that's what you guys want, I'm fine with it.
Okay, Deb?
I'm all right.
Okay, all right, so your response to Unit 77 is duly noted, so thank you. All right, so we already dealt with the directional buffer, deed restrictions within the condo docks referred to, we already talked about that? Is that right?
Correct?
Okay.
The trail and we
The
talked
trail
about
and the
that.
wetland crossing,
We talked about that.
we talked about that. Silt socks, we talked about that. Any other concerns?
I guess, Mr. Chair, just going back to the Unit 77, I'm sorry, I didn't speak up quickly enough, I guess. So what I sort of trailed off with my statement was in this particular case, I don't have that much, because of the quality of the wetland and its isolated nature. I mean, I don't want to set a precedence for, sure, build in the wetland buffer, we don't care. But in this particular site-specific, you know, the evidence to me says it will not negatively impact necessarily the functioning and quality of this particular wetland to the bigger picture. But I think that should be noted, because we're not setting a precedent that you can just build in a wetland buffer.
Right, and we, you know, we look at each wetland on an individual basis and based on what the project is proposed, and so in this one, we're okay with unit number 77 being in the buffer.
That's my opinion, yeah, that I am.
I mean, does everybody feel the same way? Okay. So any other concerns that were jumped out?
On concerning the deed restrictions on the various units there, would it be your preference that staff come up with language and suggest that to the applicant and also to the Conservation Commission of what we'd like to see included in the condo docs?
That would be great.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
That would be great, and then, you know, that would be something we can use in the future for additional projects that come down the road. So that
Okay.
would be great. Thank you. Stacy, do you have anything else that was raised during the walk? No?
No.
Taylor?
I'm all set. I think everything got addressed.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And we'll get back to you with projects for the ARM funds. Great, thanks.
Thanks for your input. We're surviving the walk.
Yeah.
No one took any diggers or anything, you know?
It's close.
Thank you all for coming out and doing the site walk and this evening.
Thank you, and thank you
Did
for
make a
getting
big
us all
difference.
out.
It made a big
Well, you
difference.
get to see
Yeah.
where it's
Yeah.
established.
It really did.
The change over the last 20 years and where it's at. Did anybody else see the wildlife down in the pond? You guys see
The,
deer?
Was there
Serious?
one walking through there?
Talking about
We came over the crest, there was a deer walking through.
Almost stepped on a woodcock out there.
I was there.
He came right up underneath.
I said 3 times, where's all the wildlife?
What was there?
There's nothing here.
Down at the weirs.
There were no ducks this time?
No? I mean, you
What are you talking about now? We haven't seen anything.
Totally missed
heard it. One
I saw
deer,
deer
one woodcock.
Yes.
And it was old.
I think there was a hawk that flew
Yes,
by.
there must be some more recent in there somewhere.
Wow.
I see more down at the boat ramp.
Right.
was actually
That's it,
pleased.
that's it.
I
What, wildlife?
didn't see
Woohoo!
anything there.
Yeah, because that
Because-
is not
Okay.
really
I would have
disrupting.
felt really guilty, but I saw nothing.
Okay, so, let me see, where are we now? What are we doing? Okay, so,
Is North Water Marina here?
no.
No.
So
They were
now,
coming.
now we're gonna go to the agenda, and item number 1 is the minutes from August 4th. Anybody had a chance to read those? And
They're on the agenda, but I have a hard copy if anyone wants to just pass it around.
I move we approve the minutes of August 4th as presented.
I'll second.
any comments?
No.
No comments? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Thank you, Taylor. Okay. Who's next? That's not it. Is it? No, that's not it. Okay. All right, so the gardens, what about, okay, so the next item on the agenda under old business is the Gale Avenue Park redesign. Do we have anything, any comments on that?
I have no updates. Dean, I don't know if you've spoken with.
No.
Okay.
I just, excuse me, so, I don't know if Parks and Rec kind of, I'm sure this is not new to them, but how people take ownership of their, no, I'm just saying, it's like they're doing what we want them to do by taking ownership of their, their environment, but I also, I'm wondering about, just kind of general outreach to them on, DIY, stormwater management and other things too, beyond just, in their backyards. I don't know if there's something the Conservation Commission could do to canvass the neighborhood with information, or through Parks and Rec, send out documents, like the link to the homeowner's stormwater guide management type thing. It just seemed like a lot of them were like focused just on the park, and they were kind of asking questions that maybe indicated to me that if we site walk their own properties, not suggesting we should do that, but if we site walk their own properties, there might be a lot of things that could be done to improve water quality on the lake that they might take in hand. They're very focused on making sure whatever's done at the park is of benefit, but I don't know about their own properties, and so.
Well, in that there, then I would make the park a model for them, and as they enjoy it, they can recognize what was done.
So signage then, instead of canvassing the neighborhood with information.
They'll come
then
into that
signage.
park, they use that park, there were parents with kids there, there were elders, there was.
Yeah, well, so anyway, that was just my point, that I just, they were very protective of the park, they were asking a lot of good questions, but it also kind of indicated to me that maybe they weren't as aware of some of the things that we would like them to be aware of, about things they might enjoy on their own property that could benefit the lake, so, that's all. That's
You
my
mean like the
point.
lawn right down at the lake?
Well, I'm thinking buffer, and maybe they'd like a rain garden, maybe that would work for them on their own property, where they were asking questions about what's a rain garden, type of thing, so.
I think that's a really good point, Lisa, and I think there are two ways that we could do it. One is, the watershed management plan that's being prepared by the consultants.
Mm-hmm.
If we ask the consultants to have a section in there that would address how individual waterfront property owners could improve, quote unquote, improve their property at the water's edge, then it would be less about the Gale Avenue area, but because, we got between 880 and 1,000 waterfront properties around the lake, and if we had some sort of a document that said, here are the 6 things that everybody could do on their private property that would improve or
Well,
protected water quality,
That's why I
then
mentioned
it would,
this, I'm sorry.
then it would be less directed at you people on Gale Avenue, and it would be,
Oh. Well, and that was why I mentioned the stormwater, the New Hampshire Stormwater Management Guide. But you do remind me that, in the management plan, potentially there's something with the Lake Smart.
right, and that was the other thing I was gonna say, is if we, you know, that would be something that I think that the watershed, network could do, is get that information, maybe pay New Hampshire Lakes to print 1,000 copies and send one to every. And it, you know, that Lake Smart doesn't just apply to waterfront, it applies to all the properties.
Well, I do like Mike's suggestion, and maybe working with Amy and see how they feel about signage. I mean, they may not, you know, I know for a while DOT was like, you're not putting up any more signs on besides any roads, we're getting complaints, but, you know, so maybe, I'm just thinking maybe, but talking with the, Amy about signage, particular to Gale Ave, but then everything else you've mentioned is part of the network's work.
Or follow up on them again on a training, you know, after they do the work for
Yeah.
the rain gardens and plantings and trimmings or whatever, and have everybody back and say, oh, look, this is what they did.
So it's, I think too, and I think this is a model maybe for potentially the Conservation Commission partnering with Parks and Rec on some of the other parks that may not be waterfront, but some of the other city-owned lands. You know, maybe that was a good exercise to have a meeting and talk about how do you use the park and how do you want to see it change? And I don't want to make the city more work for the city, but that could be a way of introducing and maybe potentially getting some funding, either through the Lakes Region Planning Commission, who has access to funds that others don't, or whatever, that, you know, for improvements in other parks that are upland parks. And, you know, wow, Lisa talks. So.
It's okay.
I think those are good ideas. You know, we live in the lakes region, and if we don't maintain the quality of the lakes, everybody's property value goes down.
Can I bring up one more thing?
Sure.
I don't know, does this tie in with what you were talking about before, about a discussion on open spaces, green spaces, and how they're being utilized? Does this bring in that?
Indirectly, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, but I think your point's about, I mean, I think we need I think Parks and Rec needs a little help in directing their resources and how they're handling things. I think your point about, it's more than just the Gale Avenue Park, obviously, it's adjoining properties, but it's also other parks, it's other city property, the same things can apply. So I think if we can set out some, you know, list of best practices and not make it, you know, super long, but, you know, I think that would be very helpful in getting a collaboration with them.
And I think that if we were to do that, we don't do it in the summer. Because I know that, I mean, I've talked to Amy about other things, and they're flat out. You know, they're just trying to mow the lawns and do the normal seasonal activities, and they don't have the resources to do let's take a step back and, you know, look at this from 3,000
Well,
feet of.
I'm sorry.
So, anyway, so I think it's a good idea to talk to Parks and Rec, and I also think it would be a good idea to talk to, Public Works. I think there's some things that they might be able to help us with. And maybe we can help them.
So, I'm sorry, Mike, were you gonna say?
Go ahead.
So for a timeline, I mean, actually, Dean, that's not a bad idea to have the late fall and then January, or pick it back up in January. So like a schedule so that people can be ready in the spring and early summer when they either are starting their garden projects or returning to New Hampshire for their summer homes, that they've had this information ahead of time and can think about planning. So with Zoom now being popular, I think there may be a way to reach out to people and have them join remote meetings during the winter months to talk about stuff.
So, didn't you have a meeting, I don't know when it was, last week, about rain gardens?
That was the Cheshire County Conservation District
Oh,
had a
okay.
program. I sent it to Amy, at last minute, I apologize, I didn't realize it was happening, but she put out so it was a virtual meeting.
It was a virtual
It
meeting.
was a virtual meeting from Cheshire.
Another opportunity would be, I know UNH Cooperative Extension has, I think it's in November, Landscaping for Water Quality. I think it's a 2-day online seminar thing going on.
Is that primarily focused at professionals, though, to do the work, or?
It's from what I've read, it's kind of directed at landscapers,
Yeah.
inspectors, and homeowners to a sense. I could look into a little bit more and see if it would make
Sure.
sense to advertise that for homeowners.
Yeah.
Because I know I think that registration might be opening up next month or so.
Yeah, that would be great, that
Okay,
would be
I'll look
great,
into that.
thank you. I think, the opportunity that we have with regard to the Winnisquam watershed, so if we can ask the consultants to have a section in there specifically for homeowners. And then I think it would make sense to couple that with it, because Pat Tarpey sits in on the meetings with the Watershed Network consultants. So do it for Winnipesaukee too, and for Opeechee.
Yeah.
I mean, might as well, there's nothing different, no difference among those water bodies, so.
Well, thanks for indulging me, everybody.
Yeah, thanks.
So, can someone just tell me, and I'm just trying to figure out who covers what, the work that was done over at Pickerel Pond, I just happened to drive through there, was that from Parks and Rec, or was that from, someone had a big old dump truck full that needed a,
That was DPW. We had asked them over the winter
yeah?
to put it on their list of to-do, and they were gonna wait till it got drier, because this year it never really got drier, but they did figure that last week was as good as it's gonna get, so they went out and put some gravel down to create a parking lot. I think it's enough for like 3 cars to pull off the road and be completely off the road. And then the next step would be, we have already ordered and paid for the sign,
Right.
the
Yeah, cause that's, I didn't see it, and I was just
sign, and
curious.
We just need to get that installed. We didn't wanna have that installed before they did the dirt work, cause we didn't wanna risk it getting hit by equipment or whatever. So now that that's been done, we can get the sign installed.
And didn't Ashley work on getting a kiosk at the Messer Street ramp? Wasn't there somebody in DPW or one of the city departments that was going to make the kiosk? Because Deb and I talked about taking the board off that's there and putting another board up, or just putting another board over the existing board. And then I thought Ashley said that she had made arrangements.
I don't know.
I know I've seen previous emails about that, so I'll look into and see where that left off.
Okay,
Remember seeing something about the kiosk there.
okay.
Speaking of kiosks, just the hot trend right now is QR codes.
Is what?
QR codes on kiosks.
Oh, yeah.
Moose Mountain's doing
Yeah, I had one
QR
on my,
codes.
I had a reader on my phone, I don't know where it went.
Well,
I think it's on
it's probably in my
vacation.
pocket. Yeah, no, but Moose Mountain's doing it, the Belknap Range is talking about doing it, or just, so anyway, I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah,
That's
so,
good,
I mean,
good, yes.
I think it's a good idea to put that on there, but, a lot of people are like paper.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I hear you, I'm just throwing that out there.
You awake? He is now.
Okay, okay. Lake Coast at Messer Street, moot point.
I talked to, Alan Beadle, was at the Winnisquam ramp yesterday,
Oh, good.
and he was talking to me about, oh, we don't have a lake host down at Opeechee this year, and I said, no, I said, not for lack of trying. I said, and I was talking to him, and of course, he knows full well, because he has Patrick's, that he can't get help either, so.
Right.
He's like, yeah, that's hard to buy, anybody, yeah, so, he understands.
Okay. Okay, and we already did Pickerel Pond. We didn't do anything about water quality monitoring, so maybe I'm gonna be.
Tomorrow, you going? In the
No,
rain?
No, tomorrow is for, Winnisquam. So maybe we can do it in September.
Okay.
Try again.
Pearly Pond, you skipped?
Hmm?
Pearly Pond, you missed?
Oh, yeah, I did skip over that, sorry. Pearly Pond.
The only comment I had on that was, Parks and Rec, we met with them, they are hoping to trim the bush that's kind of on the corner of the pond, so that they open up the view a little bit more. They're not getting rid of the root system at all, they're just gonna bring it down a little bit, so that as you're driving by, you can see the property more.
On the-
No.
on the-
No.
On the, so as I'm coming down, Parade Road, that's what I call it, North Main Street, whatever it is, Main Street, it's not with the house where they're doing all of the work, it's at the other end where the outfall is that right? Closest to Blueberry Lane? Closer to
On the
Blueberry?
right side or the left
Yeah,
side?
it would be, the front of the pond toward the oak side.
Right.
Oh,
That's-
Is whatever that, I forget what it is, the adler or whatever it is that's growing up out of the pond, that grows out of the water.
I think it's the
Alder.
Alder.
Alder, thank you.
Who complains about this?
Seriously.
Same person that's been complaining.
I'm sorry?
Same
Same person that has been complaining.
Are they young or old?
And so this is a person who has a recollection of when I was a little boy and I drove by there, I could see, and I watched people ice skating and then da-da-da-da-da-da. That's the same person.
Yes.
And it's, I'm at a loss for words.
If they trim it as much as they want to trim it, will it leave any green foliage left on the branching?
Do you remember how?
No,
So essentially, it's going to kill it, is what they're trying to do. I'm thinking.
It's always going to come right back up again. There's enough moisture in there, there's enough stuff in there that you're never going to kill that off. And
there are several clumps of that stuff, and they're only gonna do one of them, and they'll leave the others.
So who is it that is going to do the trimming?
It'll be Parks and Rec.
Can we go there while they're doing it? And,
You make sure they're doing the right thing.
wow, right around on their
I mean,
back.
Parks and Rec have been very cooperative
Yeah.
in that,
I know.
you know, they asked us to note the location of how much we wanted them to cut the grass.
Yeah.
And we marked it, and they abided by our request. And so,
I thought they went over the line.
It's
The
growing,
first
it's
time?
growing back, it's growing back.
we all go over the line now and then. And
Sweet Jesus.
like, so if we asked them to let us know when they're going out, I'm sure that they would let us know and we could go out and
Yep.
So if they did that, that would, you know, I don't know, I don't know any other way around it. But, you know, that doesn't mean, just because I don't know, doesn't mean that there isn't.
I mean, I'll ask, and I feel your frustration, I understand the frustration, and, the reality is that it's being taken out of our hands.
Oh, I know that. It was given to us and then it was taken out of our hands, before we could even do it.
That'll teach
So
you.
we didn't even mess anything up. So, can we request that they notify us, give us a week's notice?
I'll make that request.
Okay.
I have an idea. Let's put up some signage that says, this is not what a natural pond looks
Oh,
like.
jeez. Exercise.
I love that.
I'm just saying.
I mean, the other alternative, and, you know, maybe this is acceptable, maybe it's not, is that we trim it.
They won't ever be happy with whatever
Well,
we do, I don't think.
we're not aiming to make everybody happy. We're trying to reach some sort of a,
Darn, okay.
I'm sorry. I always want to be happy, but it doesn't always work out that way. So, I mean, that's another option, is that we do it.
Okay.
So,
But they're not gonna be happy. I've got the extension saw, I've got the power head, I got a big old thing.
whacker.
No, this is heavy duty, it's got a sickle bar on it.
I get, yeah,
And I'm still not going to do it right.
yeah.
I have,
That's, I guess, Mr. Chair, my reaction was less based on, actually, to be honest with you, my reaction was less based on a sound scientific approach to the management of the vegetation there, and my irritation with a disbelief in our
Right.
advice.
yeah, no,
That was why I
got you.
reacted
I
the way I
got you,
did.
you know, it's like, you know, there are several
So-
master gardeners and ecologists and people on this commission that understand exactly what you're saying.
So I apologize. Thank you.
So, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you, and as you know, we went through the process of getting the DES permit to actually dredge the pond, but the price tag for that is such, and no one has identified a source of money for that, so that's probably not going to happen. And so,
I think the
This-
person who complained should be throwing down
that-
the source of
whatever,
money.
but, yeah.
Infrastructure.
So the compromise is to take out this one clump of alder, or whatever it is, sorry. And,
Unless, of course, it's a button bush.
no,
Rip it out. Is there any infrastructure money? Will the city be getting any that could apply to that, since it's got drainage? I'm just wondering.
there is, and the city is putting together several requests for various things. I don't, to my knowledge, Pearly Pond is not one of those
Well,
things.
it's not a priority, I understand.
I mean, you really got, you have the previous owners and you have one city councilor who is, this is their
Baby.
Crusade.
their baby, yeah, crusade, right. And that only goes so far, because when you start spending some real money, then,
Everybody's quiet.
yeah.
And you know, and I guess it's, you know, it's, it reminds me of some other things that are going on in the world, and it's, there are whatever number, 2 or 3 people who are upset by this, when there are, you know, 25, 50, 100 people who think it's just fine.
Right.
But because we have squeaky wheels. So I would, I will look at it because I go by there numerous times every day, and perhaps the way to do it is we could trim it and see what the reaction is. And if the reaction is, wow, that looks pretty good, then we're done. If they say, well, it's gotta be trimmed a little more, we trim it a little more. We don't need to go in there with Agent Orange and wipe it out. But if we trim it a little bit,
So, I mean, there is an understanding on everyone's part that it's gonna grow back. And we'll be in this situation again in 2 years.
Perfect.
that's right. That's right.
We'll be retired.
Maybe, and maybe it'll be a different,
Maybe there'll be a different set of people that are making comments.
Right.
That's right.
right,
Maybe there'll be, the majority of the people won't like it. Okay.
Hey, while you're in the hot seat, Parks and Rec is not fully staffed, right?
I believe they're in the same boat everybody is. They're having trouble getting staffing, yes.
So the money that would have paid that extra staff, couldn't that be diverted to possibly a landscape company to take over all the mowing and issues that they have and give them?
Actually, I think they are doing that. I think they have hired a couple of different companies to do different fields and stuff because they don't have the manpower, so. I know they've hired raking
Rake it in.
to do a couple of fields.
Oh, okay, that's right, I saw them doing
Yeah.
City Hall.
Yeah,
And so.
yes, yeah, they were out the other day they were doing landscaping at City Hall, right? As opposed to, Parks and Rec people, which would normally do that, yeah.
Okay, so that money is already.
I
going
think they're doing
toward-
that, yeah.
I was trying to see if there was some extra money laying
Yeah.
around.
Nice try.
Okay.
Extras being wiped into the coffers of the management of those companies. Yep. You still get $12 an hour.
Okay,
Thank
it is, thank you, Dean, it is 7:29. We have been through everything down to new business, and Northwater Marina did not come to the meeting.
Did we get any information from them? Oh, sorry.
No, that's all right. They're rethinking their plans. And I think they're still gonna do what they had originally outlined, but on a different timetable and perhaps in a different sequence. So they're in the process of rethinking.
Okay, so are you going to talk to them?
Actually,
Before
I'm
they
meeting
come?
with them tomorrow, yes.
Hmm?
I'm meeting with them tomorrow.
Okay. Will you tell them that one of the questions I will ask them is, I want to see their overall plan for their property. I don't
Yep.
wanna see, we're gonna do this on this building, and then we'll come back and we'll do the next one, and then we'll do the next one. I wanna
Yep.
see what they're doing on all their buildings at one time.
Yep.
And
For
then if
drainage?
they- And if they stage it, they can stage it, but,
Yep, yep.
okay.
Is
Yep,
this,
that's the issue. So they've got to figure out what sequence they got to do things and all that stuff, so,
Okay,
Same height on the building?
yeah, I don't think that's going to change.
is this formerly Thurston's and they had
Yes.
that building 5? Okay, I just
Yes,
wasn't.
that's the one.
that's,
5A, 5B, 6,
Okay.
hike.
thank you. Oh, it's that season again, isn't it? Okay. All right, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was just gonna say I have two things for other business, two small things to.
Okay, so we don't have any, no applications came in, other business, it's yours.
So the last meeting, we talked a little bit about getting an update about the Black Brook and Irwin's development at the boat storage place. So, I spoke with Nick, who's the engineer on the project.
Oh,
He
yeah,
said,
okay.
site work was stalled by all the rain, so they just got back on site last week, actually. He meant, there hasn't been any erosion control issues that, from my perspective. They're using, stump grinding berms instead of silt fence, and it appears to be pretty effective. I guess there is a sinkhole in Lowe's parking lot nearby, so
There
Nick
is?
got DES emergency authorization to address that, but he's hoping to use that as a chance
Oh, the
to
front one?
daylight some of Black Brook, as was mentioned in the assessment that they did prior. And then I asked him a little bit more about the stream restoration, and he said they wanted to start in August. He thinks it's gonna start in October now, because it's just too wet and they've been delayed too much to really get into that. So I think I can get more updates in October or so about how that side of the project is gonna be coming about.
Okay, so this might be a perfect opportunity to coordinate with Nick and find out what other projects need to be done, how much he thinks they will cost, so that when we deal with the gardens and their ARM fund, we can have that piece of information. But I agree that I think that the pickerel pond, stuff that has to be done is, in the mix. But
Taylor,
if we can get, I don't know,
Should be able to do multiple.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
is this Nick's schedule, is that? who-
Yeah. So I can call him tomorrow or this week and ask him about what he really envisions for maybe addressing that sinkhole and daylighting or something, and see what he sees as far as maybe a cost or how that could be implemented with funds from the gardens.
So what's caused this sinkhole?
I didn't really get clarification on that. He kind of brushed over that part and was just like, we're planning on, or he saw it as an opportunity to move forward with more daylighting.
Okay, but,
But-
you know, if,
It was
if,
from the,
3 weeks ago, I think.
yeah, it was from that
Yeah, but-
really bad storm that worked.
okay,
on the
but
roads.
is,
Interestingly, though, that parking lot is not used much.
No.
But there's,
oh, that's the parking lot that we wanted them to not repave, but to remove the pavement from. It's the one that's in the front.
Front, yeah.
Yes.
but there's still 2 more spots where it opened. If you go up to the, there's an old garage there that they've kind of come around, and that, what is it, Country Cravings, or was it the,
No, Lakeside, something.
Working on that now.
right, and that's all Black Brook, that all is the same flow, that's what I was saying before, and so there's like 3 or 4 openings on that from that event, so I think it should be looked at overall, not just,
My recollection of each of those areas, like in between, where there's a road crossing is, they were cement, they were probably this wide, and I don't know how far up from the bottom now, because I hadn't walked it in years. But, so the cement slab on top and 2 cement slabs on the side, probably about this wide. That's what those were for culverts, or not, for crossings. So I don't know, I didn't observe it, but my guess is, having lived upstream of that and seeing how much water was coming under Route 11, that it probably just, you know what I mean, bulldozed those openings.
Well, okay, so that's one possibility. The other possibility is that the parking lot construction was not up to standard. And that the company that built the parking lot should be responsible for
Oh,
doing
at
the
Lowe's,
repairs.
at Lowe's you're talking about?
Well, whoever built the parking lot in the front, I remember that parking lot was like, anyway,
Okay.
so
Guilford, though, too.
yeah.
that parking lot in front of
It's
Lowe's
all
is,
Guilford, yeah.
Yep, truly is.
okay, so we should coordinate with Guilford Conservation Commission and doing some of these.
Carol Hall talked to me the other day, and she told me some information, and my brain is too frazzled to really remember exactly what she said. But they are looking at it. So you probably should call Carol and tell her Lisa's brain gave out. You can't remember what she said. I wasn't intentionally calling her about it, and that's why I can't remember what she said.
Okay.
They have a new guy, a new code enforcement officer who's on it,
Okay,
so
okay,
maybe calling him rather than Carol.
okay. Okay, all right.
And then the one other short thing that I had someone from the public reach out. She has a seawall in her backyard that's been deteriorating. This is on Weirs Boulevard on Paugus Bay. It's been deteriorating for a while, and she wanted to know if the Conservation Commission knows of any grant money that individuals can apply for to address something like that. I didn't know if the Belknap County Conservation has anything related to that, or if anyone has any ideas on where
So
she should look into this.
What's the lady's name?
Diane Johnson.
So she has,
She's 978 Weirs Boulevard.
so she's got a seawall and there's erosion behind it.
Yeah, she says it's just been, the deterioration of it has been accelerating a lot in the last 5 years, and she says it's like $150,000 project, and she was like, it's neighboring businesses that border it, individuals.
The road?
Yeah, so she was reaching out just to see if anyone had ideas about who to contact for possible funding. Because we discussed, because it's on private property, it is the
Right.
property owner's responsibility, so they would have to apply through themselves or maybe get partnership with a conservation group, so.
So I just had the exact same phone call with a woman from Alton.
Huh.
And so I put her in touch with the Alton Conservation Commission. Well, only because she said it's a parcel of land that's had, there's a history with this particular parcel, and so I thought the city's probably, the town's probably already had some issues. But I'm wondering now if it's if we start asking around if there are enough people, if this isn't something that we couldn't do a bigger grant. You know what I mean? Not us, but I'm just saying that a bigger grant couldn't be done by a partnership of organizations to address erosion of seawalls.
How does the city handle that? If it's gonna affect Weirs Boulevard? Okay.
Can I add one thing to that for food for thought? Is in the email she mentioned that this section or the seawall was built when the city put sewer pipes in there. So there are sewer pipes right nearby,
Well,
I
then it's
suppose.
Winnipesaukee River Basin Project. Get
Seriously?
him in touch with
Yeah.
her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Best you got right there. What is she, 978?
Yeah. It's a condo association, so there's multiple units there, but
Yeah.
she's one of them. She was, so Winnipesaukee River
It's
Association?
the sewer, it's the sewer system, it's DES's
Oh, okay. yes.
department
But
for
but
the
it
sewer
is
system
the Winnipesaukee
River.
River Basin
project,
Project.
Okay.
yeah.
It's down in Franklin. I think that's where they're headquartered.
Right, all.
Because they wouldn't
all
want
pipes
that
lead
to blow
Franklin.
out, and that's what happened up in the Weirs back in the day, so.
Yeah, poor
Those days.
Franklin.
So that's reasonable. She might find some relief
Okay.
there.
I'll direct her to them and
Yeah.
give her some insight on that.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all I had.
Dean, do you have anything? Okay. Stacy?
No,
Nothing?
it's all noise ordinance, nothing very.
Oh, but that's interesting.
Yeah, actually, what is the noise ordinance of the
There isn't.
city?
There isn't one.
No,
Oh,
there-
yes.
There is one.
I looked at
Oh, yes, there is.
There is?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes, no outdoor loudspeakers, and I quail some days on why that even came about.
Quail?
Yes, quiver. It's nice to quiver and quail. Quake.
So,
So,
You're
who
quivering a
enforces
second ago.
who enforces it? Police?
Yes.
yeah.
Because we have some boaters that are. insist-
Voters or not voters?
That's
Oh.
tricky.
Yeah, well,
They're there and gone.
but they're on Laconia property when they're setting up their boat and like blasting everybody out before they get to the sandbar to blast those people out.
Well, I
And
think there's,
every time.
I was at Lowe's.
This guy,
I was at Lowe's, and I didn't know if it was a dive over there or what. And I was coming out of Lowe's and headed over to Shaw's, and oh my God, it was clear. It was loud, right out behind the cemetery there.
those
crazy.
people in a cemetery are causing a
Those
ruckus again.
deadbeats were rocking.
well, this guy has a boombox like this, like huge speakers, that he carries from his car to his boat every day, every week that he's there, and he blasts it on the way. Like, he doesn't wait till he gets in his boat, yeah. and he can be setting up his boat for 20 minutes, and the thing is blasting, and I'm always telling him to turn it down. And he's like, you're the only one who complains, and I wanna say, I'm the only one that counts, because I can call the police.
Yeah, when they under, stop being a pin in the neck.
I mean, there's just no reason for it.
So.
Yeah, if you know the time of day and you can anticipate it, you might be able to get one
Hey,
of
he's
them
got
out
rights,
there.
you know.
No, he doesn't.
They've, on Facebook, there's a new neighborhood watch Laconia
Oh.
started, so everybody can rat out everybody else about all the nasty things that are going on, so.
Don't have Facebook.
So I
Just
think,
saying.
I think seriously that one of the issues that we ought to get involved with is there is no speed limit on Winnisquam.
Yes, there is.
I thought you said there was no speed limit. And that's why,
That's why I drove 90 miles an hour.
When did I say that?
I thought,
No.
and that's why the,
On all the lakes, there's a speed limit.
that's
Sorry.
why, wait a minute, let me finish this. Jeez. That's why Marine Patrol, when I talked to him about the speed, he said there's no speed limit. And that's why he could not go after those boaters that were screaming up and down the lake at like, some guy has a boat that'll go 140 miles an hour.
Yeah, there is.
And they go screaming up and down the lake.
What fun is that? It's so small.
How can there not be a speed limit?
I would call, these are my favorites, your state reps.
I think
You know,
it's-
the ones that don't do anything that represent Laconia? That's exactly where I go with that stuff.
Mike Bordas is a boating fanatic.
I thought there
Might
was,
help you.
it was on their fishing game rules at their
Hey,
kiosks. I'll take note.
I don't know.
BORDES. No.
Okay. It is 7:44. Anybody want to make a
Motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay. Anybody have any comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Hi, Stacy.
Thank you, Stacy.
I am
Okay.
sorry, Dean. I forgot Carol called about that. I'm sorry.
That's okay. You know, because she